Welcome to another edition of Ask the Experts on 570 News Radio. If you're new to the show, this is a chance for questions and answers with experts in their given field. It is a true pleasure to have this expert in the world of real estate, Tony Johal, who has built a reputation and a team here locally. And when over the last year you were hearing about people not selling anything, your team was still selling. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Does that mean you've got the magic, the secret?
It just means I work with some great people.
Well, you know what? We're going to get into more of the skinny of the different types of selling, people in different life situations that will affect real estate. But from your vantage point, let's start with the question that probably people ask you as soon as they see you. So what's happening in the market right now?
It's interesting. Well, 2026 is officially off. You know, it's now we're off now. So it's the early signs of a spring market, what we're seeing. So the funny thing is, real estate in this region, it used to be very much a springtime, March, April, May, but it starts very much now in February, and we are seeing that. The one thing that we expected this year was a lot of activity. Buyers have been suppressed for a long time. They've now got competitive interest rates, they've got the choices, they've got inventory to pick from, and they're now coming back out. Buyer confidence is starting to get restored into the market. They've got choices. And I think because of that, believe it or not, we're starting to see multiple offers. We're starting to see sellers holding offers on properties, and they're attempting to go for a bidding war. Is that going to push pricing the way it did in the past? I don't believe so. But what it will do is it will just get buyers the opportunity to get through a property before that property gets taken away from them by selling in a day or two.
Okay, so Tony, I hear the term rebound. People are waiting for the rebound because based on past performance, after a certain amount of time, the market does kind of rebound. Is that something we're going to see in the near future?
I think in terms of activity, we're going to see a bit of a rebound. We may even activity-wise, people buying and selling overall, be ahead of last year. As far as prices rebounding, though, I think we're going to be in this market for a little while. I think we're still going to be, at least 2 or 3 years in this market in which it's going to be a little bit flat. We're going to get some seasonal fluctuations up, seasonal fluctuations down. It's going to be a little bit of still a couple of years out, I think, from a true financial rebound.
Okay, now the problem may be that you talk to someone who has watched a story about the real estate market in Canada, but it depends where you are. And I'm seeing there's different pockets or anomalies in the real estate market. How do we sit in our, given we're so close to the GTA?
Yeah, the funny thing is I've got friends in Quebec. They had multiple offers. They had record prices last year, but they are now starting to feel the effects of the market slowing down a little bit out there. So as far as us here locally, we're overall down from the peak of the market. There's no question. Everybody's down from the peak of the market. But,
which was what, spring 2022?
Yeah, it's right about there. Around, the beginning of February was the absolute peak. And then just after February, it started flattening and toppling on the other side. But we're down about 25% from the absolute peak in terms of pricing. But when it comes to activity, people are getting back on board, which I think buyer confidence is coming back to the market.
Does that affect the Tony Johal team, how you sell? Like last year, you were still selling.
Yes.
But are you tweaking and always, I know you keep an eye on the market and what's going on. Do you then change the methodology by how you sell?
Yes. It used to be where 21, 22, and even 2020, the tail end of 2020, every listing that would hit the market, it would be put into this bidding war process, almost like an auction where a property that's worth maybe $800,000 would come to the market at $599 or $699 with the intentions of looking at offers 1 week later. That'll give buyers the opportunity to come through the property without the property getting taken away within, hours of it hitting the market. It will give the buyers enough opportunity to come through the property. And it will always give the seller the opportunity to realize full value for their home. So that was I don't want to say it was a standard, but it was basically how properties were sold, 2020, 21, and 22. Now we are still seeing fluctuations in which certain times of the year we will do bidding wars. There's other times of the year where we put it at market value. And a lot of that just has to do with when buyers are coming into the market, we look at how much inventory they have to pick from. If they don't have a lot of inventory to pick from, the seller may at that point say, okay, look, I've got something here that many buyers want and I don't have competition. And at that point, they may choose just to hold offers just to see what type of offers are out there.
This is Ask the Experts on 570 News Radio, talking to Tony Johal with his team. TonyJohal.com. That's TonyJohal.com. 519-650-5800. And with that in mind, I've been reading some real estate stories as of late. Certainly when it was at the peak of renting, people were looking at how much they're paying for rent and saying, should I be buying? Let's talk about the fact that rent prices are falling, the current state of the rental market.
Interesting. You know what? For the last 2 decades, it's been always, it's been difficult for tenants. There's no question. Everything they look at, they're wrestling against multiple other applications. But now we're starting to get some balance in the market. Right now, there's over 1,300 active lease listings out there for tenants to choose from across the region. 1,300.
What a contrast.
Yes.
Wow.
There's lots of options. There's a number of reasons for that. First of all, we're getting all of these condos that have been built in the uptown, the downtown cores, Cambridge. A lot of these condos have been built, and many of the people who purchased these, Mark, they never had the expectation of closing on that property. What they wanted to do was buy it from the builder and then assign their contract, meaning before the building was completed, they wanted to sell their contract for a profit. It was a quick way of making a buck back then. But then all of a sudden, plan B was, okay, look, the assignment realm is kind of quiet. Let me, close on this condo. Let me take ownership of this condo and I'll put it on the market and sell it for a profit. Well, guess what? When everybody does the same thing, nobody's going to make money. And so what ended up happening was all of these condos started coming to the market for sale. They weren't selling. And so what ends up happening is the owner then reduces the price, and they get to a point, Mark, where they're just like, I'm taking too much of a loss on this. My plan C is to maybe just rent it out until the market stabilizes. And that's what's resulted in an overflow of inventory out there in terms of rental properties.
Now, does that have a direct correlation and effect on the buyers and the sellers?
Well, so what ends up happening is now people start comparing the cost of ownership versus the cost of renting. And for many years, the cost of home ownership was cheaper than renting. But now we're at a point where renting is now cheaper because the interest rates are a little bit higher than what people were accustomed to. But, the home prices are also quite a bit higher than where they were in the past. So now the financial motive for people transitioning from rental to home ownership is not quite what it was in the past. Now people can get into home ownership simply because they want to own some real estate.
Okay, now maybe you can talk to me about, are landlords becoming more open with tenancy applications?
Yes, landlords are certainly.
And for those that aren't aware, explain what that would mean.
Absolutely. So basically when we had a real shortage of rental properties, when we had the international students here, when immigration was at an all-time high, that just meant less housing for people. So that meant that landlords had hundreds of applications to pick from. So for them at that point, they would always go, who's got the best credit, who makes the most money, who's going to be the most stable tenant, and they had several to pick from. Now, with inventory freeing up, very qualified tenants have the choices. They now know that they are the diamond here. If somebody's got great credit, they make good money. They've got lots of options out there. And so landlords are making concessions for those great tenants who are coming in. Those concessions can be somewhere along the lines of maybe a month free of rent, or maybe sprucing up the apartment a little bit. Maybe, we'll put in new flooring, we'll put in new carpeting, just to make it a little bit more appealing for that AAA tenant that's there. But yes, the landlords are starting to look at other applications too. Maybe somebody that may not have the credit that the landlord maybe expected or wanted at some point. Maybe somebody has some bruised credit, or they have credit blemishes, something in the past that the landlord would have said absolutely not. They are now starting to look at these applications because these properties are costing the landlords a lot of money every single month. When you have the mortgage, you have the taxes, you have in some cases, condo fees. Condo fees aren't cheap these days either.
No, and increasing.
They're increasing. So you could be $3,000 in a mortgage, $500 for condo fees. $3,500, that's not going to rent for that mark. That 2-bedroom apartment may rent for $2,300. You've now got a shortfall of $1,200 a month.
Wow.
So the landlords are, in some cases they are willing to take that $1,200 loss every single month. But the thing is, how many months can you go with it being empty? So when you go 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, that is a lot of out of pocket. So the landlords are being a little bit more flexible. Not completely. They still have certain standards. They still want good credit. They want, income to far surpass.
Absolutely. It's an investment for them,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
They want the income to far surpass what the monthly costs are going to be. So, yeah, the landlords are going to be a bit more flexible, but not all the way.
Okay, we've got lots to talk about. Tony Johal, his team here locally, they know all about real estate. 519-650-5800. TonyJohal.com to find out more. There's some great YouTube videos as well to watch online. But you'll learn more by listening here when we get back. Ask the Experts in just a moment. Welcome back to Ask the Experts, 570 News Radio. My name's Mark Payne. Devin is our producer today. Questions and answers with experts in their given field. And if real estate is part of your world right now, it is in everybody's at some point, be it renting, buying, selling. You have questions, and hopefully we'll give you some of the answers. However, if you have other questions after the fact, TonyJohal.com, 519-650-5800. Tony and his team know real estate. They have an amazing reputation here locally, and I'm not just saying that because you're sitting across from me right now. Okay, so we've had a little chat about the fact that this market has just been, it's amazing to see the power shift from the seller to the buyer, and the market's changed and prices have changed. Are people still looking for the same thing when they're looking at a home?
Yes, absolutely. People are always looking for the same thing because for many people, when they're getting into the market, it's their first time. And so when they get into the market for the first time, the biggest thing that they're looking for is location. And so the old adage goes location, location, location. And it really is true because whether someone is buying the first home, their next home, where they want to downsize to, the environment matters. First-time home buyers, they want to buy in a neighborhood in which they know that when they go to sell in the future, they know it's not their forever home. So they know when they want to sell in the future that they're going to get their money back and they're going to make a little bit of money on top of it. For the families out there that are buying their home, they want to move to an area in which their kids are going to integrate well with the neighbors, with the parks in the area, with the schools. People want to be out there. They want to be at the edge of their driveway doing barbecues. And, these kind of communities still exist here in the region. And those are the neighborhoods in which people rarely move away from. So location is absolutely critical. Then at that point, people start saying, okay, I want to be in this area. What is in my price range? Then they start sorting by price range. Once they actually find something in that area within their price range, the next thing that they start looking at is the condition of the home. They start thinking, is this home loved? Or is this a flip? Or is this a hoarder home? And we see
Right.
So the people want to look at the condition of the home.
I was going to ask you, okay, so what would, for example, some of the things that one would have an eye for, looking for, whether you're looking for a home or if you're thinking of selling, what are the things that you should be aware people do look for?
Well, the thing about real estate is people will always make their first impressions on the outside. Now, they always say don't judge a book by its cover, but people do. When they pull up to a house, there is such a thing called curb appeal. If they don't like the house from the outside, or if they don't like what's going on with the neighbor next door or something that's like a little bit off, then they likely won't even come in the house. So the first impression really does need to matter. So I always tell people, focus on the outside. Make sure the garage, the paint is not chipped away. Make sure the vinyl or the wood around the windows is freshly painted. The front door isn't all beat up and dinged. Make it a good first impression.
That one gate that's been hanging on an angle
exactly.
that you meant to get around to fixing?
That's right. Or the Christmas decorations in July. Things like that.
Yeah. But these could be things that you are just not aware of because you see them every day.
Absolutely.
Like sometimes it takes another set of eyes.
Yes, absolutely. So, whenever we're meeting with a client, we always start on the outside. let's look at the house from the outside, and we give them feedback on the outside. Nothing dramatic. We never say, let's add another driveway spot. It's always just making the best of what they have. And so we start in the outside. Then once people move inside, a lot of the times, Mark, it comes down to a feeling. People know within seconds of walking in a house if this is the one or if this is not the one.
Interesting. Just like a vibe, just a sense?
Exactly. It's like a home feeling. It's like a home feeling. I never really understood that because I've always been an analytical person. I've always looked at it from that perspective. But I never really understood that until I started walking buyers through a home, and many of them would just stop at the front foyer and just kind of get a look around and get a feel for the house. Then they start walking through the home. And so a lot of it has to do with the feeling. Many times buyers have picked up homes or purchased homes that I thought others were better suited for them. And then I go back and ask them, why did you buy that home?
So as part of that, maybe they see clutter. And
Yes.
I guess it depends how they live. If
Yes.
they live very sparsely and they see a house full of clutter, that could be off-putting?
That's definitely one thing. So, definitely clutter is one thing that buyers definitely shy away from. Or if they walk into a house and let's say there's a really strong smell of maybe the homeowner smoked in the house.
Yes.
And I've had buyers turn away because they're just like, look, I can't walk through the house. It doesn't give the best first impression for that person who does get put off by that type of thing. Or if they come and they walk into the house, and I personally love dogs, and I love dogs. You and I were talking about that last time. But not everybody's an animal lover. They may walk into a house and then all of a sudden this dog runs up to them, and I've seen people freak out like, oh my God, a dog. But to each their own. So I would always say, try to make the first impression the best that you can. Like if you're a smoker, start going into the garage. If you've got a dog, maybe put it in the crate for the showing and things like that. Don't let them roam loose. And, definitely don't go overboard with those, those Febreze air fresheners and plug-in things. And I've had people just have allergy attacks with that. So,
or they think, what are you hiding?
What are you
masking?
Hiding? Yes,
what are you masking?
Absolutely. That's the other thing. What are you hiding? So,
would you almost advocate that you get a neighbor or a friend or a relative to come over as though they were looking at your house?
Yes.
For the simple state that I see it all the time, or your realtor, one of your team, to say, what are your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. I would always definitely say get someone from the outside to come in and look at the house. So every home that we list, Mark, we always send through our stager. The stager's job is to kind of look at the house from the perspective of a buyer, because when you've lived in your home for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you may not notice that box in the corner, that ottoman. You may not notice that the hutch is full of old kind of Victorian dishes, and you grow accustomed to these things. Or you just need someone else to come in and say, hey, look, let's move the booze away from the house. Let's move the religious emblems down. We have to start neutralizing the house. That's all part of the moving process.
Does that include, because I've heard removing too many personalized items?
Yes.
And does that incorporate like family photos? Is that what we're talking?
Yes.
So that it's hard to imagine that's a negative. Mm-hmm. But again, they're not in your family.
Of course. And so I always tell people, look, you do not, when we come through, we get professional photography done in your house. You don't want your daughter's wedding photo plastered online on MLS for the whole world to see.
Right.
Let's start taking it down, because we want buyers to start to see themselves in that house and not have to live through your memories to see themselves in that house.
Okay, now let's just switch gears. What if you're looking at a new build? New housing developments.
Yep.
And with that in mind, you're dealing with a builder now.
Yes, but a lot of the times when you walk into a showroom, the house is rarely empty. They've always got it staged with nice furniture. They've got tables, chairs, decor in there. Many times people walk into a new builder's, like maybe their show home, and they say, I want this house and I want all the furniture inside of it. Because what people do is they just fall in love with the entire package. And they start looking at this beautiful home and they think of their raggedy couch that needs to go in the corner there. It just doesn't give the same warm and fuzzies as walking in.
Are you saying they're romanced by the items in the house?
A lot of the times,
and instead of just looking at it without all that?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, because a lot of people can't see the size of a couch. They can't position where the TV is going to go. They can't see the house as a fully completed functional home versus an empty home. Now, there's a lot of people out there that can see past all of that. They don't need the bells and the whistles to be able to see the potential in a home. But there's other people that definitely are more visual in nature. They definitely need to see this.
Okay, now builders often will offer incentives sometimes.
Yep.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I think it's we're seeing builder incentives today more than what we've seen in a long time. With the market tightening up, with builders having a little bit of a tougher time moving their product, the last thing they ever do is change their price. So the biggest incentive you would think is, well, reduce your price. But by builders reducing their price, it could throw off the entire project. So they don't want to do that, because if you walk into a home today, buy it from the builder, and you're getting a discounted price from someone who bought it 2 months ago, and they're still 6 months away from closing,
Right.
you are now jeopardizing their ability to get financing because their appraisal is going to come in lower. So what builders do now is they try to keep the pricing all the same, so that way everybody knows that they paid the same price. But what they'll do is they'll put in incentives along the lines of, we'll finish your basement, we will throw in an upgrade package, the design center, you'll get up to $50,000 in the design center, or however they frame it. But they will give you upgrades for you to incorporate into the house.
These are little pluses that they're willing to give you,
Absolutely.
but not have to adjust the price.
Correct, yes.
So these are important things to think about. What percentage of people are looking for a new build versus an existing house? Or do you find that people are open to both?
I find the majority of people are still predominantly on the resale side. And, there are, a lot of people that have lived in a new home and they've enjoyed that experience. They've outgrown that first house. Now it's very difficult for them to move into a resale home because they have certain expectations of how they want their kitchen to be, how they want the house to look. So for them, transitioning from, that home that they built to another new home is a lot easier than someone that's lived already within a community. And they've never lived with construction all around them. They've never lived with, trucks and, all this other construction around them. It's a very difficult thing for them to do.
Okay, well, that's a good point. Now, maybe we'll pick that up with how much work should you do to your house if you're going to be selling it. We're going to find out more. This is Ask the Experts. Tony Johal on 570 News Radio. You're listening to Ask the Experts on 570 News Radio. This is a weekly show with questions and answers, talking to experts in their field. Hopefully you'll get some questions answered during the show today. But if not, you can reach out to Tony Johal. His real estate team knows what they're doing locally. 519-650-5800, TonyJohal.com. That's TonyJohal.com. And some wonderful, knowledgeable YouTube videos as well that I got. That's a rabbit hole going into YouTube, but you learn a lot. I love that.
Exactly. If it could be a good rabbit hole or a bad one.
Yeah, now I love rabbits, so why not?
Well, absolutely.
Nice to have you here. We were talking a little bit about when people are getting a house ready to sell, the do's and don'ts, and get rid of too many photos and personal things. Then you get people that think, well, if I spend all this money and renovate, I will get the return of much more. And so my question to you is, if someone's thinking of selling, how much is too much to invest in renovating? Because you don't really know the taste of the potential buyer.
Absolutely. So, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Some renovations take time. And sometimes if you take too long with your renovation, you could miss that window in the market. By missing the window, what ends up happening is you may have spent, a considerable amount of money to get your home prepared for sale. But if the market's going through a little bit of a dip during that season or that time of year, then at that point, you're never going to realize the full potential of the money that you invested or that you're hoping to get back out of it. So when it comes to renovations, the safe ones are always the kitchen, the bathroom, the floors, the paint.
The coat of paint, right. You hear of that all the time, yeah.
Absolutely, because I think a fresh coat of paint just makes the house feel fresh.
And as you said, fix the small things that visually might take away from the appeal.
Absolutely. Believe it or not, it's the small things that people start to think, okay, what else is wrong with the house? And so I always tell people, address the small things first, because they're quick, they're easy, and it gives the buyer that sense that, okay, well, I can deal with a kitchen renovation. But if they start seeing dings in the drywall, or they start to see, the baseboards coming up, they start thinking, okay, do I have water issues? Do I have water damage? Is the foundation off?
Right.
They go down that rabbit hole of just what's wrong with the house. Whereas if all of that is nice and tuned up, then it's a matter of just looking at the project for what it is. New kitchen. Okay, this is how much it's going to cost, and they'll start to estimate that.
It's interesting you say that, because when I bought my current home, the seller provided a binder where she had accumulated basically a record of anything done to the house, from the paint colors to...
Yeah.
But what it did more than anything else indicated to me this person cared for the home.
Oh, I love those people. So sometimes clients will sell the home and they're like, Tony, I have the warranty for the stove.
Yeah.
I have the roof receipt that when they did it 5 years ago. I'm like, you are the best.
Yeah.
Because immediately the next buyer just knows that the home was looked after by someone that just kept everything in just pristine order. And so
These are people that keep boxes for things. When you buy
exactly.
How long do you hang on to the microwave box?
It's
you know
true.
what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's true. These are they're great people, and they're the ones that give the buyer that sense of confidence that the buyer's buying a great home. So when it comes to renovations, I always tell people, look, let's look at the things that make the house look really nice first of all. The kitchen, the bathrooms, the floors, the paint, let's focus on those areas first. What I would say is, things like the roof, the windows, the furnace, these things are all important, but they don't necessarily increase the value of a property. And the example that I always give is this. When you're selling your car, you may have bald tires and you may switch out the tires to new tires. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get more value for the car. That just means you've maintained the car in its proper shape. Now, when you start putting an upgraded sound system and leather seats, these are the things that increase the car's value. That's why you pay more at the dealership for those kind of things. It's the same thing with the house. Bells, whistles, features, pretty, that X factor. That's what buyers are looking for.
And that's why talking to your team, the Tony Johal team, you can kind of point out the things that'll matter. Like
Absolutely.
That can wait. Don't bother with that. This, yes, do some of the basics.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, let's get back to the chat we were having about new builds.
Yes.
And how some builders are offering incentives, traditional incentives, kind of the pretty things, if
Yeah.
you will. But then you had mentioned a term to me, mortgage buy down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no money whiz, but explain. What is that? Is that something now being offered in Canada?
It is, yes. Yeah, I first heard about it a few years ago in the U.S. And so, they created something called a mortgage buy down, which the Canadian builders started to adopting. And we're starting to see that here now in our region too, where builders are offering a mortgage buy down, meaning someone buys the property for a certain amount of money, they overpay for the property. That additional money now goes towards interest payments for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, however long your buy down period is. So a builder buy down is basically you are buying a better rate over 2 years or 3 years or that type of thing.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that can be advantageous.
Absolutely. It does. It just makes the home more affordable for the person on a monthly basis.
Okay.
And it's something that the builders can advertise, builder buy down or rates like 3%. When they don't really exist in the market.
Okay. If you're not familiar with that, or you're just tuning in the last minute and you want to know more about that, you can contact Tony Johal and his team to find out more. Staying on the money side of things, delinquency. Don't even like saying that word, but the delinquency rates increasing for mortgages?
Yeah. So I think it's important for people to understand what represents a mortgage delinquency. It's not just a missed payment. It's 90 days past. And that's when the bank would categorize it as a mortgage truly in default.
Sorry, 90 days after the missed payment?
90 days after the missed payment. So what happens is if you miss your payment, sometimes the bank will reach out to you. They'll send you a formal letter. They'll contact you and say, you have 2 weeks to get the money up to date and so on. Or whatever that timeline is. They'll give you until the next period to get it up to date. But once you go past the 90-day mark, it then goes into a delinquency. So right now, I want people to know this, that the delinquency rates in Ontario are not at an alarming number. They are increasing, but we expected that when renewals were coming up. People were not able to keep up with what the new rate is compared to what they initially signed up at. For people to go from $3,500 a month to all of a sudden $6,500 a month, it's considerable. And so, yes, inevitably, that's going to lead to people falling behind on their mortgages and for an extended period of time and therefore going into a delinquency. From what I understand, the number is under 0.5%. So it's not it's not alarming at this point. It is something that we are seeing more of. I can go onto our internal MLS system that we as realtors have access to, and I can find properties being sold by the big banks. I can find a Royal Bank sale. I can find a CIBC, a TD sale, or a private lender sale. I can see these things on the back end. Whereas in the past, they were harder to come by. Certainly during the peak of the market, we didn't see that many, bank sales, but now we're starting to see them a bit more.
Now, is this a discussion you can have with the lender before you hit that 90 days?
Yes,
I usually work out a solution.
Exactly. I always, share with my clients when we get that phone call, immediately reach out to the lender, let them know that your plan is to meet with a realtor and get the home on the market. Be transparent with them, so at least that way they know that you're not ignoring them and that your intentions are to sell the property.
Okay, staying on banks for a second, what about the appraisal?
Yeah, so I think
if it ends up being a disparity in the amount it's worth, as opposed to the appraisal,
the bank will always go on the appraisal side. So an example of that is, let's say someone buys a home for $400,000. The bank does the appraisal, it comes back at $350,000. The bank will finance up to the $350,000. They won't go based on the contract you signed. So now you, as the purchaser, you have a couple of options. Number one is that $50,000 difference between the $350,000 and the $400,000. You can pay for that out of pocket. Not too many people have that ability to do so. They don't have the $50,000 to cover that debt. The other thing is you can appeal the appraisal. This isn't something that too many people know about, but you can always appeal it. And, there is that possibility that the appraiser could look at your new comparables that you've sent and reevaluate his number to bump it up. But I don't think it's going to be, in that 15% range that we're talking $350,000 to $400,000. We're not talking that dramatic, but he will certainly, if the comparables are valid, he'll probably adjust his number to be reflective of those comparables. So what I would say is, for every buyer, number one, first of all, always put in your financing condition. Not just conditional on you getting financing, but conditional upon you getting financing and then also getting the appraisal done. An appraisal can happen pretty quick. So for example, if you already have your ducks in a row and you've got your paperwork ready, you send everything to your lender on day number one, hypothetically by day number two, day number three, you might already have the approval from the lender. At that point, the lender can issue the appraisal. That may happen in day number 4. And then by day number 5, you've already got the approval, the appraisals come back, and the appraisal is satisfactory to you and to the bank.
Okay, but there's nothing I can do to affect the appraisal in so much as what they're going to appraise it at.
No, I mean, you can't really influence the appraiser. The only thing that perhaps we can do afterwards is, us as realtors, is maybe submit some information on your behalf.
That's what I meant, like information relevant.
For sure. Maybe the appraisers that we have here in the region are great. They're fantastic. But every now and then you can bring something to their attention that maybe they didn't catch, and then that could be the 1 or 2 comparables there that make up that difference that kind of puts you in a position to move forward versus falling short.
We're talking to Tony Johal. Tony Johal Real Estate here locally. They know what they're doing. They've got the knowledge. You can reach out, ask questions. TonyJohal.com. TonyJohal.com. 519-650-5800. This is Ask the Experts on 570 News Radio. We are back in a moment. You're listening to Ask the Experts on 570 News Radio. My name's Mark. Nice to have you listening today. We talk to experts in their given field, hopefully answer some questions for you. More than anything else, steer you in the right direction. Tony Johal, his real estate team, experts here locally with a wealth of knowledge. You can reach out and ask questions. People just contact you and say, look, here's my situation. Mm-hmm. I bet you put them in the right direction. Right?
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. 519-650-5800. TonyJohal.com. That's Tony, Tony. Johal.com. And also, I do what I did. Look at some of the great YouTube videos you've got to learn lots at the same time. We were talking about appraisals before. I'm reading stories, and I don't know if it's just in certain areas, but certainly in Toronto, where people bought and then the appraisal didn't line up with what they paid?
Of course, yeah. And Toronto's the most affected municipality that it's happening in. Toronto's kind of known as being the condo city, that kind of thing. So
this is condos primarily, is that
primarily? Yeah,
okay.
We're primarily seeing them with the condos right now, and they're certainly the ones that are making it into the news stories and so on. Where, someone may have purchased a condo in 2021 and 2022, and the builder maybe told them that it was going to be built in 25, 26, 27, and here we are today. The condo is ready to be purchased now, ready to close for that buyer, and the buyer's going to need a mortgage on it. And so, they may have paid $500,000 for a 2-bedroom condo, maybe back in 2021, and today it's evaluated at $400,000.
Oh.
So $100,000 less.
But you signed a contract.
You signed a contract. You've forked over tens of thousands of dollars in deposit money that's now on the line. So what ends up happening is that buyer now is thinking, I don't have the money to close. I need a mortgage on this property. The bank's only appraised it at $400,000. I've committed to a contract at $500,000. I'm short $100K. What do I do? And so for many people, they just don't have that in reserve, and they don't have anybody else that they can sell the condo to. And so they end up now basically having to walk away. They lose their deposits, and they could face litigation.
Losing $100,000 or more, maybe in some cases.
More,
now,
yep.
We hear so much about the condo market in TO because it's the
Yep.
big city. Does the same happen here locally with the condo market?
We do see it here, but certainly not on as big a scale. There's certainly buyers here that have committed to buying in the downtown core, and they don't have the ability to close on the property, because we get those calls regularly. People saying, I'm looking at assigning my condo. I'm looking at assigning the contract. And we openly tell them, look, it's going to be very, very difficult to assign the contract. Number one, we as realtors are not able to promote that property to the fullest of our ability because of restrictions within the document that buyer signed with the builder. The builder doesn't want the realtors to be able to promote that property until they've sold everything they have. So they don't want to be in competition.
So that's right in the contract.
Right there. So
they're
for
restricted.
example,
Wow.
Yeah, so you're not allowed to put it on the MLS, which is a big one, because that's where many of the buyers are turning to when it comes to looking for opportunities that are out there. So right away, you've eliminated the MLS. Some builders have restrictions about marketing it on social media. So really what you're hoping for, or what that person who's the buyer, what they're hoping for is that realtor has a big enough network that they can maybe promote it within their network to see if there's a buyer within that network. But there's lots of assignments out there. The buyers within that network have hundreds of choices. And so in many cases, it's not in their best interest to take over that assignment when they really don't want to get into that same pickle. They don't want to buy somebody else's problem, so to speak. So yes, we do see the occasional, buyers and ability to close on a property here in the region. And so we always tell them right away, make sure that you have private lending, make sure you have someone else that can help you out financially. Take that high ratio, take that high interest rate mortgage, do what you've got to do to close on the property. Because if you don't close, you can lose all your deposit and you can get sued, and you're better to close on it with undesirable mortgage rates and then perhaps attempt to sell it later.
Right, when hopefully the market's improved.
Yes, or hopefully when the market's improved, or at the very least, attempt to rent it out, or at that point sell it for a loss. But that loss is probably going to be substantially less than losing all of your deposit money and getting sued.
Tony Johal joins us, Ask the Experts. Real estate is a fascinating field in the sense that it has to do with where you're at with a life stage, whether you're buying and selling. For someone selling, it's your equity. It's your home.
Yeah.
For someone buying, they want the affordability of getting into their house for the first time. So let's go back to last year where, by the way, you and your team were selling. You were still selling. You adapted to the market.
Of course.
But there were people that maybe dabbled with the idea of selling, then pulled it off the market or said, not now.
Yeah.
And they're waiting and they're saying, okay, Tony Johal, 2026, do I sell now? Do I wait? And on the flip side, there's someone who is maybe thinking about moving and they're trying to decide, should I wait a little longer? Is it going to be better to get in?
Well, I would say for the buyers, speaking to the buyers, first of all, I would say there's never been a time where you've had more choices than what you do right now. You have lots of homes, whether it's older homes, whether it's newer homes in different areas, and sellers are open to taking offers with a condition. So you can put your financing in there, you can put your home inspection in there. If you're transitioning from one home to this next house, you might even be able to put in your condition to sell your current home to buy this one. So there's lots of options out there for the buyers right now. And I can see that continuing to increase as we get into spring market, more and more inventory hitting, especially in the new communities. Now, for the people that did try selling last year, I would say that 2026 will definitely bring out the buyers. But what I will say is this, if you were looking for, an above market value last year, you're certainly not going to get that this year either. This is not the market in which sellers should be testing the market to try to get, that above comparables number. This is the kind of market that if you have sincere reasons in selling, whether it's financial, whether you want to move, move to a different city or
Sure.
move
Health
back
could be
home.
a thing,
Health,
whatever the case may be.
exactly, or you can't even do the stairs anymore. Then you've got sincere reasons. I would say, price your property properly, base it on comparables, and then the market will do its thing. The buyers are out there, but the buyers are also very savvy as to what prices are, what the home is worth these days.
Yeah, and people have very specific ideas. I was reading about a woman, and she in particular wanted to move to a walkable place.
Yeah.
That was important to her, to be able to go here to the grocery store and not have to get the car out. Whereas someone else may be in Commuterville
Yes,
thinking, I want to be near the 401. So it really varies, doesn't it?
absolutely. So I always think if your reasons are good, if you price your property well, if you're not being overly greedy and challenging the market and expecting buyers to give you an astronomical figure that just doesn't exist anymore, then I would say you've definitely got a shot in selling this year.
Okay, so if I contact Tony Johal's team and I think, okay, this is the year I think I'm ready to either buy or sell, am I looking at waiting a few months, or are there things that I should put into motion now?
I would say that, February, March, well, certainly March, April, May is when the buyers start coming back out. You certainly want to be on the market at that time when the buyers are coming out. So, March, April, these are going to be your prime months simply because the buyers are out. That's when you want to be on the market. And, just going back to the point a second ago about the buyers and, like when you're selling your house, you may not get top dollar, but keep one thing in mind. You're also not paying top dollar for your next house too.
Well, that's a very good point. It's all relative.
Absolutely.
And I mean, there are anomalies in pockets
Yep.
geographically.
For sure.
Would you say generally, though, province-wide, things are still about the same?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at kind of all the areas kind of within an hour or two of our region, they've all came down in price. So that affects you when you're selling, but of course you benefit from that when you're buying too. So there's really nowhere around here in which the market has went up. But there's certainly segments of town, even here in the region, in which they haven't been affected as much as some other areas. So I'll give you an example. If you look at some of these neighborhoods, like in Old Westmount, kind of in Waterloo.
Right, the established
neighborhoods,
yeah.
the ones that's not your typical everyday cookie cutter house, unique properties, these are the ones that haven't really been impacted as much as perhaps the ones sitting on the 401 when you've got 3 or 4 models of the same house on the same street. It's when somebody's got something unique, something different, those are the ones that the buyers tend to rush to.
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, in the real estate world, there's still money. Some people still have money.
Absolutely.
And they can still afford that big house. It doesn't affect them as much as someone that's just paycheck to paycheck, or instability or the economy's affecting, right?
For sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful knowledge from Tony Johal. People can reach out to you with questions.
Absolutely. We're very easily found around town. Or you can email me, tony@tonyjohal.com. And we're on social media with all the same stuff.
I wonder if next time you're in, maybe we could even get into the affordability of homes in the region. That's
Oh, I
something
would
that's
love
of
that.
interest to a lot of people.
I would love that.
Okay, well, maybe we'll bring that up next time. Only so much for one show.
Yes.
Hopefully you've had some thoughts, things to think about today, or terms that we brought up that you could ask Tony Johal and his team about. Tony Johal can be contacted 519-650-5800. TonyJohal.com. And again, as I mentioned, there's some really interesting YouTube videos as well. You've got a successful team here locally. You're doing something right. And I know word of mouth gets around, right? About a great realtor. Yep. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you. And thank you for listening to Ask the Experts. Devin Robertson has produced the show today. And you can find out more about the show, kitchener.citynews.ca, under the Listen tab. And we hope you'll tune in next Saturday.